The kid was adopted. The car was falling apart. And the business plan that would reshape the global economy was typed on a laptop balanced on his knees as he bounced down Interstate 80 in the passenger seat of a beat-up Chevy Blazer. 30 years later, the company he built on that road trip would generate $1.2 million every minute. Conquer retail, dominate the cloud, and quietly infiltrate your home. Amazon didn't rise because of flashy ads or viral products, but through a cold, calculated strategy that crushed entire industries. And just when regulators closed in on the man behind it all, he vanished from the throne he created. But to understand how Jeff Bezos became the architect of the everything store, you have to start in Albuquerque, 1964. He was born to a teenage mother, Jackie, who worked as a secretary. His biological father was a circus performer who disappeared before Jeff could form memories. A few years later, fate delivered the father figure who shaped his future, Miguel Mike Bezos, a Cuban immigrant who adopted Jeff, gave him his last name, and unknowingly handed him the origin story of a trillion-dollar empire. Jeff wasn't a normal kid. He dismantled toys to study their gears, built makeshift labs in the garage, and devoured books like fuel. He would ace exams, then stare at the stars for hours, mumbling about colonizing the moon. At his high school graduation, he publicly declared humanity should build space colonies and orbiting amusement parks. The audience applauded politely, unsure if they'd just watched the birth of a visionary or a future comic book villain. Princeton came next. Electrical engineering and computer science. 2 degrees because picking one wasn't efficient enough. He graduated near the top of his class, but he wasn't the type of genius who charmed people into forgiving his intensity. He was the kind who carried an unmatched focus, jittery ambition, and a laugh like a malfunctioning hyena. He bounced through prestigious jobs in the early 90s, Bankers Trust, a failed telecom startup. Then came D.E. Shaw, the mysterious hedge fund that hired brainy misfits. Bezos rose to senior vice president by 30. He also met Mackenzie Tuttle, a sharp, analytical colleague who didn't think it was weird that their first dates included long discussions about business models. They became engaged within months, and then one statistic rewired his life. The internet was growing at 2,300% per year. Most people saw that number and thought, cool. Bezos saw the early blueprint of the 21st century. He created a spreadsheet of 20 possible online businesses. Clothing, CDs, but books. Books were different. Millions of titles, standardized. Books were the perfect gateway to the emerging world of e-commerce. He walked into David Shaw's office and told him he was leaving to sell books on the internet. Shaw replied, "That sounds like a great idea for someone who doesn't already have a good job." Bezos ignored him. He quit, convinced Mackenzie to quit too, packed their life into a 90s Blazer with fading upholstery, and began the cross-country drive to Seattle. While Mackenzie drove, Jeff typed the Amazon business plan in the passenger seat bullet points that would quietly birth the most disruptive company of the modern era. His first company name choice? Cadabra. He dropped it after his lawyer misheard it as cadaver. Relentless was another contender, so much so that Relentless Com still redirects to Amazon. Eventually, he settled on Amazon vast, dominant, alphabetically advantageous. It wasn't a bookstore. It was the start of the everything store. In 1995, Amazon launched from a garage with a door desk, extension cords, and a fax machine. The first sale was an obscure technical book. Bezos rang a bell for every purchase until the office was drowning in nonstop ringing. Orders exploded. Customers weren't just buying books, they were buying efficiency, convenience, and time. Bezos pushed one command: get big fast. Mistakes were tolerated. Perfection was not. The focus was speed. Amazon went public in 1997. Critics mocked its lack of profit. One analyst famously wrote, "Amazon, toast." Bezos ignored them. He urged investors to think long-term, and those who listened became spectacularly wealthy. Then came the innovation every retailer feared: customer reviews. Competitors thought he was insane. Why let customers publicly criticize products? But transparency built trust. Trust built loyalty. And loyalty became the engine of Amazon's rise. The catalog expanded from books to CDs, DVDs, electronics, eventually everything. But Bezos wasn't only building a store. He was building the infrastructure beneath it. Warehouses turned into sophisticated fulfillment centers with scanning systems. conveyor belts, and software that treated human movement like an equation. Then, in 2000, came the controversial masterstroke, Amazon Marketplace. Bezos allowed third-party sellers to compete directly with Amazon. Rivals called it suicidal. Instead, it exploded Amazon's product range and generated priceless data. And then disaster, the dot-com bubble burst. Stocks crashed. Tech companies evaporated. Amazon stock plummeted from over $100 to $6. Analysts predicted bankruptcy. Inside Amazon, layoffs swept the company like a cold wind. This was the crucible moment. Bezos became ruthless. He slashed costs, killed pet projects, and forced Amazon into disciplined efficiency. Where others died, Pets.com, eToys, Cosmo Amazon survived. Scarred but transformed. Then Bezos struck the move that rewrote consumer psychology. Amazon Prime in 2005, unlimited 2-day shipping. Analysts mocked it as financial suicide. But Prime wasn't generosity, it was behavioral engineering. Members bought more and faster and stopped shopping anywhere else. Amazon had created its own gravitational field. Next came the Kindle in 2007, which detonated the publishing industry. Independent bookstores shuttered. Publishers scrambled. Amazon didn't just dominate books, it reinvented them. Behind the scenes, Amazon Web Services as it was launched from a side project. Soon it powered Netflix, NASA, the CIA, even parts of Walmart. Competitors fighting Amazon's retail empire unknowingly paid Amazon to run their digital infrastructure. But power attracts scrutiny. Reports emerged of brutal warehouse conditions, unrelenting quotas, and constant surveillance. Regulators accused Amazon of copying successful sellers and burying competitors. In 2020, Bezos faced Congress. Calm, precise. The man who built the everything store was grilled for the first time. Then, almost casually, Bezos stepped down as CEO in 2021. No scandal. No crisis. Just a quiet exit after 27 years. As if the architect had completed his machine and passed the controls to Andy Jassy, and then Bezos returned to the dream he had as a teenager, space. Blue Origin was no vanity project. It was the blueprint for humanity's future reusable rockets, lunar ambitions, orbital habitats. Bezos began calling Earth a beautiful place we can visit, imagining that heavy industry would one day operate off-planet. His personal life shifted too. His divorce became the most expensive in history. Mackenzie Bezos emerged as one of the most generous philanthropists alive. Jeff bought a $500 million superyacht and became a walking meme, but he didn't care. His mind was already in orbit. Because for Jeff Bezos, Earth was never the final destination. Amazon wasn't his masterpiece, it was his launchpad. The boy who stared at the stars never stopped looking up. And the most interesting chapter of his story still hasn't been written.